Our non-sponsored drinks. Hello, I'm Alex.
I'm James.
And I'm Dan.
We're the Ragamuffins, and this is episode 55 of the Ragamuffin Music Podcast. It's a place for us to talk about the music that we love.
On this episode, we're reviewing the brand new songs from Tala, President, as well as the new album from Bury Tomorrow.
And we'll be taking a deep dive into the brand new Sleep Token album, Even in Arcadia.
So first of all, President have released their brand new song, In the Name of the Father.
Their debut song.
Debut song. I think they've got a show that's happening right before Download at this point, which should be like a little debut show before, I guess, the grand reveal properly at Download Festival.
Is it
which
before?
is, I believe it's before.
I thought it might have been after.
I thought it was after. I thought it was in July.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
so,
I'm
July.
wrong. I saw it in passing.
No, Download's the debut.
Download is the
Debut.
debut.
Download is the debut.
What do you think of the song?
Well, what do we think of President as a whole? Let's start big picture.
Well, I think they've been very clever to kind of tap into the Sleep Token fan base a bit. I mean, they're under the same management company, so there's no problem in doing so. Obviously, being a masked band and like being a little bit cryptic and having a bit of lore and stuff, it's always going to kind of lend itself to that fan base. So they've done a good job to kind of get people on side and get people talking about them and speculating about them before they've even released any music. But now that they have, I wouldn't say I'm disappointed. I think it would be easy to kind of get your hopes up and get really excited about it, especially with some of the speculation of who the members might be, which we probably won't go into too much because
No need.
they're masked, aren't they? Like, they've not publicly revealed who they are. We know who they are. We're not going to crash that wedding. I think the song is great.
I agree.
It's not excellent. It's not doing anything like new in particular, but I think it's fun. They're playing on a bit of lore and like a bit of a theming going on, which I think is very cool. And it's obviously just like a new project for this artist to work on, isn't it? And I think it's good. I'm not so sure about the vocal effects during the verse. I think that kind of loses me a little bit, but I think the chorus bangs. I think the riffs are great. And it's good fun. I can't wait to see it Download.
Yeah, I agree. There's one part in the chorus, the delivery of "I can't hear you yet," just like scratches something in my brain. The way that he delivers that line. I think the song as a whole is really cool and really fun. I feel like people online have sort of forgotten that genres exist. Everyone's been like, "Oh, it sounds so much like Sleep Token," which I don't think it does as much as people are. I think if they weren't masked and they didn't have this kind of like a bit of lore and mystery, you wouldn't have even probably
I'd say
made
it's more
that
like
comment.
a stat address.
Closer to Bad Omens, I think, than anything else. But people are like, "Oh, it's just the same again." It's like, did you see the metalcore in the 2000s? That was all the same, and that was all cool. So
it's a point we'll probably come back to later on when we review the new Sleep Token album. But Sleep Token don't sound like Sleep Token half the time.
yeah.
Like, across the Sleep Token album, there might be like 5 different genres that are all like intertwined there. So it's impossible to say that a band is copying Sleep Token or sounds like Sleep Token, because no one sounds like Sleep Token.
I think as well, it's sort of like an interesting, and Sleep Token do it as well, but like the approach to the whole thing is very sort of counter to the way that a lot of bands operate nowadays. Like, with the way that social media has kind of evolved, particularly coming out of the pandemic, social media's got a lot more kind of like raw and unfiltered again. Like the whole, even down to like, I know this is might seem off topic, but just stay with me. But like, even with Instagram, like, people aren't using filters as much. Like the idea of doing like dumps of your posts rather than just like carefully curating your stuff. And I feel like bands have sort of done that as well. Bands talk to their fans online in a lot less of a formal way than they used to, and it feels a lot more interpersonal and a lot more conversational with bands online.
Yeah.
Especially when bands will post about like a tour or even a new single. It's very casual now, which I think is overall a cool thing and a good thing. So I think it's interesting for a band like this to go like completely the other way with like how their social media is formatted and how they address fans with, you know, starting every post like with basically like a citizen's address. I think is interesting, and I think it is like, I don't know how much you can speak to it being unique, because I guess Sleep Token were kind of front running that style. Of course,
but it works with Sleep Token.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's clearly working for this band as well.
Yeah. So I think it's cool. I think it's just interesting to sort of reframe, like take something that is just a gig or just releasing music and make it feel like it is something different, like by calling the gigs, you know, rituals or whatever.
Let's not forget, Sleep Token weren't the first band to start doing that as well.
No, they're just the first one that comes to mind. I think the comparisons are all quite obvious. But on the whole, I think this is a good song. I think it's a really exciting debut. I think some people have maybe knee-jerked a bit too quick, given that we've only had one song. You don't know where the rest of this project's going to go. So that's my 2 cents.
I think it's a decent song. There's like some really cool moments in it, but I don't think, for me, there's anything massively special. I see a lot of people making comparisons about vocals, kind of bringing them back and reminiscing from previous projects they've heard from certain members, which obviously, if you enjoyed those members and you enjoyed those projects, then yeah, it's like a nice nostalgia hit for it. But I never kind of grew up on those bands, so I don't get that attachment for it. I think it's good. Like I said, I don't think there's anything special with it. The worry that I have is that, yes, there were bands before Sleep Token doing it, but then this is very much obviously taking massive influence in terms of stuff, like you say, with the social media, how they're addressing things. Are we now just going to get a rollout of bands who have seen how popular Sleep Token have become, how well they've done that, being so incredibly unique, and that uniqueness is now going to get lost because everyone's going to be like, let's be a masked band, let's be really cryptic, let's go into lore. And like you say, they've done a great job of capitalizing on the Sleep Token fan base. Now more and more people are going to see this happening, and you don't want that to become too diluted. Otherwise, the thing that's made Sleep Token special is going to get lost, and it's going to become just a smorgasbord of bands all doing the same thing. You want everyone to be unique. And so for me, like going into this, kind of following what's gone on with Sleep Token, like being on the same record label, the mask thing, the way they're addressing things, it didn't feel massively unique to me. It just feels like, oh, okay, this is like how Sleep Token kind of started, and you're getting those kind of ideas, the way they're talking to the audience. So I just don't want to see a whole load of bands out there doing the same thing, because then you may think you're being unique, you're not. You're now just following the same formula that popular bands have now done. So that's my little concern about that. Otherwise, it's just going to become diluted.
It works.
Yeah, but not everyone.
Yeah, but do we want like 20 different bands doing the same kind of thing that are now masked?
Yeah, there are 100 metalcore bands that all do exactly the same thing, and no one bats an eye.
I think if you can't back it up with good music, then
I think
people aren't going to care.
That's the key point. Right? Like there could be 100 metalcore bands doing the same things, but then let's say, for example, I've harped on about it, the Landmarks record is doing very different things, the way they're doing things musically. I think there are a lot of musical comparisons you can make with this in Sleep Token. I don't think it's as close to more recent Sleep Token saying in the past 2 albums or so. Yeah, it's closer towards Tomb and Sundowning, I would say. But this still doesn't feel like an incredibly unique new thing.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Well, that's my point. Like, pop. Like, let's look at pop punk, right? That genre isn't pretty much reached the peak of it. It's never going to evolve.
It peaked in the 2000s.
It's never going to, like, you can't really reinvent that wheel anyway. That's fine. We can still have new pop punk bands. I feel like everyone's kind of like, I feel like people can't have it both ways. If people like Sleep Token and then another band pops up that does it well, that's not a bad thing. We're naive to think that there won't be Sleep Token imitators. When Architects blew up, everyone sounded like Architects. Some bands did it really well. Some bands didn't. Some bands ripped off Sempiternal when it came out really well. Some bands didn't. The cream will rise to the top regardless. I think the fact that this sounds kind of like Sleep Token and kind of like Bad Omens is inevitable. Like that, those are the popular bands of the scene right now.
Also,
and it's fine for bands to, and normal for bands to take influence from that, because no one's taking influence from a band with 100 monthly listeners that sounds like absolute dog shit.
No, I think it's fine. Take influence from all different bands. I mean, that's a great thing to be able to do and to show those influences. I'm just making the point. I just don't want it to become a diluted thing that everyone's just going to see. Oh, that's popular. We're all going to do the same. Otherwise, it loses the uniqueness.
Yeah, but now we can count on one hand the bands that sound like this.
But yes,
we start talking about metalcore, and we'll be here all day.
This is very new. But I'll hot take you on one thing. Mm-hmm. I would say, and you'll get ready for this with my review later on. You'll get ready for this later on.
I'm loading the comment section already.
I'm going to bait so many people with this, but this is genuine. I think from the new Sleep Token album, when I'm going to review that in a bit, they're doing Sleep Token better now than Sleep Token are.
President are?
Yep, with this song. And you wait for my review on Sleep Token later.
What I will say though is it's not that deep. Like this is
we're here to critique.
This is a band that, like, the vocalist in this band has had extreme success with some projects in the past. They don't necessarily need to go out there and prove anything. I think this is them just creatively wanting to do something a little bit different, a little bit fun for themselves. Because let's face it, if they wanted to go and make some money, they'd just go on another tour with their old band. I say old, they're active still, but
yeah, I get your point.
So yeah, I don't think they're necessarily doing all of this to gain success and popularity. I think it's just a creative thing that they want to do.
I think, like Dan said, I think this is someone who's doing it who can, and wants to just have fun with something new.
Yeah,
because I feel like we might as well just say who it is now.
I think it's fun to not say.
I think it's fun to not say, but really casual hints.
Yeah.
But they've got two...
I mean, living the year 3000, man.
Yeah. They've got two very successful projects in different areas of music. Like you said, they could have just picked up either of those and carried them on. Mm. And also... how do I make this point without just saying the band name?
I mean, a Fight Star reunion would have been huge.
Yes.
So they could have just done that.
They could have just done this as the new Fight Star song and kind of... I'm not too familiar with what Fight Stars sound like. No. So if this is a massive departure, then that might have been shocking. But there's no reason to say that this could have just been done as a Fight Star, start up again.
I mean, really, do you think you'll be listening to President when you're sleeping with the light on?
I think David would really like this song.
Who's David?
some guy lives next door. Yeah, and this song has just been packaged up as a present for everyone.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of another one.
People are going to be like, yeah, I love it. Someone else could be like, but you said no.
Thunderbirds are go.
This song made me mess my pants.
I think my closing thought is just have fun, man. Just enjoy it. Does it not? I know that we've just hyper-analysed it, but
that's what we do.
If it sounds a bit like Sleep Token, I'm going to say Slipknot then. If it sounds a bit like Sleep Token, and you like Sleep Token, it's okay to just enjoy this as well. Case closed. Move on.
Tala. A primeval detachment.
Well,
I wasn't so keen on the last song they put out.
Agreed. No. Neither was I.
What about this one?
This is Won Me Back.
This is Won You Back.
A lot more.
Tell me about it.
It's still, like I said, the last song was basically a Korn song.
Mm-hmm.
This has still got all the like new metal elements and stuff that Tala have done in the past. It's got clear Korn influence still. I think that's mainly coming down to the production of the drums.
I'd also say the bass tone.
It's just heavier. It's doing loads of interesting, wacky noises as well, which Tala love to do. Justin's doing his thing with the vocals, just going all over the place. This is just much more of a Tala song for me, but also like fresh enough and different enough from old Tala to be clear progression. So I really, really like it.
Is this the most chaotic Tala we've had, do you reckon?
It's up there, I think.
Because you kind of
it's one of those that you think it's done and it can't go any further, and then it just takes an extra step.
But it's still
adds
hooky.
Another weird noise in somewhere.
It's still catchy and hooky, because my issue that I had with...
what we know.
No. The album. The Generation of Danger. My issue with that was that it was too wacky. I couldn't get a foothold on the album, basically. Whereas like Metriphagy had a lot of chaos to it, but it was still... I feel like you could still get into it. Yeah. Whereas I felt like the Generation of Danger, maybe intentionally, was quite abrasive and quite difficult to listen to. But this is just brilliant. It's just, I think it's fantastic. And the video is...
Video is sick.
massive.
I can just picture straight away the bit of like Justin hanging upside
the bit where it like pans up and he's like crawling along the thing. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. Yeah, it's nice to have like a gritty new metal vibe for a video like that. It's
directed and edited by Max as well.
Yeah, it's sick. It's really good.
You're getting your kind of Tala newcore in there. There's elements of deathcore in this. And then you're getting elements of hardcore where you kind of want to throw down a two-step, which you've never really had in a Tala song before. So they're still just kind of pushing the boundaries of the experimentation they put in. The bass tone, I think, is gorgeous. And I think tends towards that kind of Korn comparison you get as well. It's just wonderful chaos. And it's like they're starting to kind of really branch out and push the boundaries of what they're doing. And I'm very, very excited to see how this is going to keep going with this album campaign because... yeah, I liked what we know, but this to me is like Tala really experimenting and absolutely nailing it at the same time.
I still believe that Tala are just like one break away from just getting big and getting on some bigger stages. All they need is just the right person, like in the industry somewhere, to come across them and want to support them and give them that break, and then they'll grab it with both hands. And
incredibly
I think
talented.
Could be huge.
Incredibly
I've said that
band.
since Refugee, but
and an incredible live band.
That break just hasn't seemed to have quite come along.
No.
I think they do well on YouTube and online and stuff since they've done stuff with Nick Nocturnal. But yeah, they're close. If they just keep doing what they're doing, I know that someone bigger than us is going to give them a platform and get them out there. Right, we're going down under. We've got a new Parkway Drive song called Sacred. What do we think?
Well, I think it's very good.
Excellent.
Moving
Next up.
No, yeah, I was a big Parkway fan from some of the earlier stuff when they were, I guess, a bit more straight up metalcore. And they started to evolve to, I guess, incorporate elements that I guess you would say are a bit more like classic metal. That they did that at the wrong time for me, because it was as I was coming out of my like teenage years, I was interested in only finding music that was getting heavier, and at the time I felt like they were getting softer, so I sort of like rejected it for a bit, and then they became one of those bands that just sort of fell out of like my loop, so I just stopped keeping up with releases and stuff. And then when we saw them at Download a few years ago, I remember thinking like, I don't really recognise any of this stuff, but it all sounds really good and it all sounds massive. And I think what this song shows me is that they've maybe now blended those two elements, like the old metalcore style with the massive sort of anthemic classic metal and classic hard rock stuff that they now do. And I feel like this song is a really good example of everything that they've sort of evolved to be summarized in one song. It's heavy when it needs to be, and it's anthemic and massive in the chorus. It's got brilliant guitar work throughout. I think it's going to hook me back in and probably give me a good nudge to go back and revisit some of the albums that were in that window that I missed. So I don't know. I feel like I'm not qualified to say, but maybe this might be like a quintessential Parkway Drive song, at least of the modern era. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really delved that much into Parkway Drive. Even after seeing them at Download, I really enjoyed that set on the main stage. I thought they were phenomenal. But again, it just didn't quite pull me in enough to want to go and check them out properly. But listening to this song, it's great. I have listened to some of their older stuff, probably from the era where you were a bit put off them, Alex, because it's, again, what just wasn't quite holding my attention. But this song kind of, like you said, does everything it needs to do. It's heavy when it needs to be, melodic when it needs to be, and I've really, really enjoyed it. So maybe this is the one that kind of pulls me in and gets me listening to Parkway Drive a bit more again.
I don't have much more to add, to be fair, to what you two have said. I never really listened to them at all growing up. But this to me just did come across as a solid song, so I might be calling upon some Parkway recommendations from you both. But yeah, they've got an incredible legacy at this point as well. The stage shows you see them being put on are amazing, and they seem to be on a pathway, if this is leading towards full big album campaign that's going to happen. Pathway Drive. Yeah. But they're on that Pathway Drive then, where you could be looking future download headliner.
Most certainly.
Depending on how this drops.
That was funny because Alex and I both looked at each other at the same time.
I could tell.
With the same look on our face of who's going to say it.
And it was me.
Lorna Shore have kicked off their new era with a single, Oblivion.
Very happy. Very happy.
I'll go first because I don't have much to say about it.
Go on.
It seems like a relatively accessible song compared to some of the older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's a Lorna Shore song. It's kind of theatrical, does lots of fun riffs and drummy bits, and then what's his name comes in with the pig squeal.
Well,
so that's him. Will Ramos comes in with some crazy vocals.
Do you want to?
Which to me is like, as someone that doesn't listen to Lorna Shore much, is just like the ingredients that go into a Lorna Shore song.
No, I feel like it's not peak Lorna Shore of what they've released, but it feels like this is much more of like an amalgamation of what they've been doing the past few releases via albums and EPs they've been putting out, and kind of like tightening everything up a little bit. Video.
How? They're like they're like one of the tightest bands.
I think
already.
in terms of like much more exploring with the synths having different parts throughout it and the way they're structuring their songs compared to what they've kind of done on previous releases, you could see more of that, I would say, coming through on Pain Remains compared to like the to Nothingness EP.
I'll have to take your word for it. Cause
that's fine. You can take
it
your
all
word
sounds
for
the
it.
same to me.
So that I feel like there is much more structure and much more attention on the songwriting at this point with it. And yes, it's a long ass song as well. At like 8 minutes for deathcore is a fair amount of time to kind of sit and listen to it for something that can be quite abrasive. However, I could sit easily. I think the video was absolutely incredible as well. I think it's something that I've learned to appreciate listening to them more is actually a lot of storytelling that goes on throughout their music. I only found out properly recently that Pain Remains is actually a concept album, and that there seems to be a concept coming through, at least in this song and with what they're putting out with the album in September. I think that's when it's coming out. So there's a lot more, I think, subtly going on behind the scenes, that if it's something that you kind of pay attention to with them, that will definitely give more of an appeal for it. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this new era and very much looking forward to seeing them at Download, to be honest. And we're not reviewing it because we've got a lot of things to review here. But if you are a big deathcore fan, a debut album by a band called Larcenia Row dropped called Extraction, and it is phenomenal, chaotic, fast, incredible deathcore. So I do recommend that.
Actually, I also want to shout out some songs we haven't fully reviewed, but are worth your time to check out. Ithaca's farewell song, Ithaca, came out today at the time of recording, and it was just a very bittersweet thing to listen to, and very sort of expansive. I feel like they've used this opportunity to be like, let's just put everything we like in one song.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really sort of nice bow to put on a band that is unfortunately calling it a day. And also shout out One Step Closer for their latest song Jinx, which came out semi-recently and is also a banger.
While we're doing shout outs, should we talk a bit about the Arm's Length album?
Yes, most certainly. I've only given it the once over, but...
Cool. I've given it maybe 3 or 4 listens now, and I think personally it might be an album of the year contender. I think they've expanded on what they've done well on their previous album. They're kind of a pop punk band at core, but the way they kind of incorporate breakdowns, the lyricism as well on this album is just a huge step forward as well. Not that it was bad at all on the last one. There's some really good lyricism on the last album, but some of it is just really well done. The vocals are brilliant, and it's like we said with the Partway Drive song, this whole album, Arm's Length just seemed to know when to stick a breakdown in, when to change the tempo, when to place a slower song across the album as well. And I think the more I listen to this album, the more I love it, and the more I love this band. I think they're one of those bands that are just doing everything right at the moment. And although doing having a very new sound and like taking the scene and the kind of genre forward. At the same time, they've still got that kind of nostalgic feel about them as well. So I think they're just ticking all the boxes for me at the moment.
Smashing.
How are you feeling after one listen?
The same as you, but with not as much detail, basically. It's just something I want to spend a bit more time with, is how I feel.
Nice.
So I'm just excited to go back to it.
Perfect.
Do continue, James.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's
sorry,
all right.
Sorry about that.
So now,
back to
felt
the
the right
regi-
time to interject there if we were doing little shout-outs.
Back to the regular scheduled programme.
Back to the regular schedule programming. We've got brand new Bury Tomorrow. Will you haunt me with that same patience? I'm probably the biggest Bury Tomorrow fan here, so I'm kind of intrigued to hear your thoughts beforehand.
I think it's cool. I don't think it's as good as the previous album, Seventh Son. Is that right? Is that the one?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that album quite a bit more. But what I will say is that this feels really heavy. And from someone that took a little while to get into Bury Tomorrow, I didn't really get into them until the album Cannibal. And one of the reasons for that was Danny's voice. I always felt like his growls and stuff just kind of grated on me a little bit. I think Alex shared the same opinion as me before. But I've grown up a bit now and realised that actually, particularly listening to this album, he's probably one of the most versatile heavy vocalists in the scene. Like the way he can growl, the way he can do like high screams, low screams, everything in between. I think he even jumps in on some cleans on occasion as well. He just sounds great. He's a really good vocalist, and I'm disappointed that it took me so long to realise that. Whether it's me like being naive and not giving him much of a chance, or whether he's developed his voice and his vocal style a bit, or maybe a bit of both. That's like my main point coming out of this album, I guess, is that he's a really, really great vocalist, and I've finally realised that now.
I think it's in the instrumentals. Because I think the disconnect that I had for a really long time with this band was that instrumentally they were doing some very, I guess, clean cut, kind of classic metalcore stuff, like the way that the riffs were and just sort of how they were structuring songs, and just the general sort of instrumental approach felt very like clean cut. And his voice has always felt really complimentary, muddy, and really like just like messy and kind of ugly sounding. And to me, I felt like there was always, well, I guess I'm talking about it with hindsight, but like I think that's what it was, is there was a disconnect in my brain of like his voice sounds good, but it does, but not
It's
on
misplaced.
this. Yeah, it's misplaced. And I feel like that's why I enjoy the Seventh Son so much, is because I think instrumentally they sort of got a bit dirty, and it was like the rest of the band getting in the mud with him, and then it was like, oh, now this is all working together. So yeah, that was that. And with this album, I enjoyed it, but not as much as the Seventh Son. I think I maybe probably overhyped it in my head based on the singles, because I think the singles were all really strong. With that being said, it's something we talked about with Bury Tomorrow relatively recently, but commend them for getting heavier, but I think if you compare them to a lot of the other British metalcore bands from the era they came up in, a lot of those bands have diverted from where they were, which is fine, but like I think you've got to credit a band for like doubling down and being like, this is who we are, and like we know who we are. We're not. They've never had an identity crisis, and I can't say the same for some of their peers. So that's where my credit is due, I think.
I kind of agree with both of you. I think the Seventh Son is a stronger album as a whole. It felt a lot more cohesive. This just feels a lot more exploratory and kind of a lot of different sounds they're trying for and exploring different avenues, which I think is fantastic for them. But I think that does change the dynamic of this as a whole package of a release of a set of songs. I agree. I think some of the singles in particular were incredibly strong. Again, echoing what you've said, Danny's vocals on this are phenomenal and probably the best he has put on record. And it seems like they're really finding the dynamic with like the members that changed in the past few years, and they're really kind of honing in on that. And again, yeah, I think it's fantastic that they are doubling down on what they are in, very much like this is us, this is Bury Tomorrow, and really, like you say, finding their identity. And I think that's something to commend in this day and age where you do get bands switching up for various reasons, whether they want to, whether it's more of a commercial kind of thing as well, but to kind of give the respect to them in the path that they've created, especially in the British metalcore scene. They've definitely paved the way, have kind of given a road for so many other bands that they can follow with it. And it's nice to see them just kind of growing and growing still. The fact that they're supporting Electric Callboy and Arena Tour in the UK, amazing. I need to see if I can get on a list for tickets, because I think the Ali Pali one is sold out. But yeah, a strong release, not as good as Seventh Son, but I still think Bury Tomorrow have a hell of a lot more to give still, even going on after this. And it'd be interesting to see where they could end up going, because I could see them as a band in the future potentially that could be an Ali Pali headliner.
We've got one more album review coming up a bit later. It's the Sleep Token Evening Arcadia album. But first, a message from our sponsors.
You may notice some lovely T-shirts that we're wearing. We're now sponsored by Broken Day Clothing. If you didn't see all the news last week, you can use code Ragamuffins20 for 20% off all orders over £40. We've got lovely variants in tees. A lot of their clothing is inspired by music, inspired by nostalgia, inspired by horror.
Yeah. I mean, look at Alex. He's got like a Master of Puppets T-shirt on. That's super cool.
Looks banging.
Sick as fuck.
Go get your T-shirts. There'll be a link in the description below. And just look sick for festival season.
And now we're back.
Wow.
As if we never left.
Upcoming releases.
Tell me.
Now, I'm not going to lie. We're hitting into the festival season where Sweet Fuck All starts to get released.
We're busy anyway.
So the two that I've got within the next 2 weeks for our recording dates are Desolated with Finding Peace and House of Protection releasing Outrun You All, their debut EP.
Yes, please. House of Protection. Yeah, they're sick as fuck. High energy, good, punk rock. Say no more.
Yes, House of Protection for me as well. Excited to see them at Download.
Unanimous.
Well, Desolated will be good as well.
Desolated will be great as well, but
make no mistake about that. But yeah. Is there anything else? That can't be it.
Downwind
Might be another Sleep Token album if the rumours to be believed.
Don't believe it. Nah.
Fair enough.
We don't believe those rumours.
You went to a gig.
I went to a gig.
Where'd you go to? What'd you see?
I went to Marble Factory in Bristol to see Pup, the band. And it was my first time at that venue, and it's up there with my favourite venues immediately. It's kind of in like an old like warehouse kind of factory kind of place. There's like a little courtyard after you enter with like, it feels like a mini festival, almost like the kind of lobby area at Alexandra Palace where there's all the food places and the bars around the outside. They've got all that kind of vibe going on. And then you go through like this little like curtain thing, and then you're in the venue. There's the band's playing and stuff. There's the merch bar. Really, really cool little venue. And sort of between the bands as well, you can just nip back outside for a little bit, go to the bar. If it's a warm day like it was, you can just like go outside and cool off for a bit, like between bands. So yeah, it's up there with my favourite venues now for sure.
Who else was on the bill?
Who else was on the bill? That's a really good question. Illuminati Hotties were the main support, which me and Em realised that they're from California, so they probably didn't think about the British accent when they named their band. Because obviously to us they're Illuminati Hotties. In the US they're Illuminati Hotties. So we kind of assumed they named themselves with that rhyme in mind, which doesn't work anywhere else other than America. And they were cool. They're not quite my thing, like musically, but they put on a good live show. They were high energy, really good fun. And a band called Goo were the main support as well, who were kind of just a punk. I say just they're a punk band from Yorkshire. They were really cool. Just like a kind of post-punky with a bit of an emo and pop-punk kind of influence chucked in as well. They were really cool. Kept the crowds pretty captivated. Everyone was paying attention. No one was chatting and stuff. So that's all you can ask for from a support band, really. I'll come back to the support bands in a minute because they were involved in the main set. But yeah, Pups live set as well. They're always one of my favourite live bands. Just the energy that they bring to the stage, and the fun as well. They're always just having a laugh on stage. They're always just one of those bands that you see them on the stage and you can see that that's like 4 best mates just having a good time, playing music, touring the world, and just living their dream, essentially. They played a handful from the new album, but a good mix of stuff from their back catalogue as well. So everyone was happy. The energy was noticeably a little bit higher for some of the older songs and the hits and stuff, but that's always bound to happen. And I mean, the album's had only been out for like 2 weeks at the time, so maybe people still needed time to kind of get used to the newer songs. They played Mary Kate and Ashley for the first time in, they reckoned, 6 years. So that was a nice little addition to the set. And towards the end, they played Reservoir as well, which they got the vocalist and the guitarist from Goo out to play guitar. So Stefan could sort of like take over and do his thing as like a mic in hand kind of front man. And they got the vocalist from Illuminati Hotties out as well to do, I guess, some backup vocals to help Stefan out. So it was a really, really fun time. And I love it when bands, like the headline band, kind of incorporates the support band into their set like that as well. Because then even if you've arrived late or you've turned up a bit later and not seen the support bands, you're still kind of getting exposed to them, I guess, which is a really cool idea.
It's always like, I think that's one of the things that's always a standout gig from what you said, and that is like when you see a band having fun, you have fun. Like when you see the enjoyment up on stage, it just like reflects back onto the crowd so much, and those always, I think, stand out as some of the best gigs you end up going to when that happens. So very happy for you.
Which is funny for Pup, with so much of their back catalogue being how much they wanted to fucking kill each other. It's like, we love this actually.
Yeah, they introduced If This Tour Doesn't Kill You with, this is a song for us, about us.
Brilliant.
We're going to play it for you. And Mosh Pit Dan made a nice appearance.
Was that
for a lot of the set.
Mosh Pit Dan warming up, ready for festival season?
He's well warmed up.
He's ready.
He's defrosted.
Yeah.
Thanks God.
Mm-hmm. I thawed out.
What you got there, Dan?
What I've got here is a vinyl copy of the brand new Sleep Token album, Even in Arcadia.
Where can you order it?
You can order it from truckmusic.store if you feel obliged to. This one is on gold vinyl and has like a nice gold finish on the cover as well. Anyway.
Gold for number 1 because it's a number 1 album.
It's number 1 basically everywhere in the world,
multiple
it seems.
countries, UK, America, Germany.
So really, it doesn't matter what we think because it's a number 1 album.
But we're going to discuss it anyway.
It never really matters what we think.
I don't know. Does it matter what we think? Let us know in the comments. Actually, don't.
Do you value our opinions?
Don't answer that question.
Go on, kick us off.
Where do we
Right,
start?
let's review this album. Now, I am a massive Sleep Token fan, as viewers of this podcast will know.
You're the token sleeper.
I'm the sleepy tokener of this podcast. And let's go through like my first listen to this album. I was a bit like, okay, that was a lot. There's like, they weren't necessarily doing anything like new or unexpected, but a lot of the songs were very long. A lot of them had, similar to when we talked about Emergence, one of the singles, there was a lot packed into one song there. And that's kind of what I felt like across the album. There wasn't necessarily, there were moments, but there weren't necessarily any particular songs on the first listen that were standing out to me. So I thought, I enjoyed that, but I'm going to need more listens to really understand what's going on. The more I listened to it, the more songs started to stand out to me. Like the opener, Look to Windward, I think is a really, really strong opener. The way that it kind of builds in that signature Sleep Token way, breaks into some heavy riffs and heavy kind of gent breakdowns. I thought was really cool. Songs like Gethsemane, kind of being the only song on here where there's something new going on with kind of math rock verse that's going on, and it's probably got some of the most kind of personal and most poignant lyricism across the album as well, which I think is probably, to me, like the strongest point and the strongest comparison to compare to other albums. A lot of the lyrics on here feel much more like internal and much more personal to the man behind the mask. It's most obvious on Caramel, obviously, but there's much more across here that just feels like he's kind of reflecting on himself and almost on recovery. Take Me Back to Eden feels like, I'm going to use a song title from the new album, it feels like putting his past self behind, and this feels like he's kind of still reflecting a little bit, but almost starting again. And yeah, some of the lyrics on here are just really, really strong. I think some of the best lyricism that they've done so far. I think the closing track as well, Infinite Baths, is a really nice closer. So I think to kind of summarise on my thoughts, I think if you disregard everything they've done up to this point, I think it's a great album. There's certainly some tracks on here that I enjoy a lot more than others. There's a couple on here that I probably wouldn't be that fussed about revisiting. Past Self and Provider are two of them, which is frustrating because Provider has a really great chorus, but just isn't a song that kind of appeals to me very much, sadly. So yeah, I'm waffling.
No, it's good.
It's good. If you disregard their previous efforts, I think this is a really great album, and I really enjoy it. Unfortunately, it's impossible to forget what they've already done, and for me, this is easily their weakest album. Not necessarily a bad album by any means. It's still a Sleep Token album. You know how a bad pizza is still like really tasty.
Pizza.
It's still great. It's still pizza. This is still a Sleep Token album.
I'm intrigued because I was going to ask you where do you rank it.
This is still really enjoyable, but it's for me as a long-term fan their weakest album. I think again there's songs on here that I think are really great, which I'd stick in playlists and stuff. But as an album as a whole, it's probably not one that I'll be revisiting and playing front to back too often, like I do with their other three albums, basically.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I pretty much echoed everything that I've thought about it. The one thing I will commend it is, and I've said on the podcast quite a few times how bad I suffer with my attention span for an album, particularly a long album. And I never felt it once with this album. I always felt like it kind of flew by. But I don't know if that's maybe because I was kind of mentally clocking out of a few of the songs. Sure. Like the same two that's Past Self and Provider, I was a bit like, there's an audience for this and it definitely isn't me, which is fine. Yeah, I think this album, I don't want to look at it in like too much of a clinical, like reviewy way, but I think it just lacks a bit of quality control. Or maybe there's a bit of maybe justified arrogance that they can kind of just do whatever, because Eden was as close to flawless as I think a modern metalcore album can get.
That is somewhere it falls down. Is Take Me Back to Eden was like as close to a 10 out of 10 album in my opinion that you can get. So it was never going to compare. And as well with that being like the ending of a trilogy of like a whole theme, a whole storyline that they had probably planned out before they even dropped Sundowning. It was always going to be interesting and perhaps difficult for them to kind of find their feet again and find what they do after that.
Yeah, it definitely
feels... and it's almost like we haven't really got an answer yet.
Yeah. It feels like a band, which is weird for a band on their fourth album, given the like trajectory they've been on. But it feels like a band like finding themselves again, which is maybe a tad concerning with like the Download headliner so close. Like, I don't know. I feel like this album has kind of made me like almost lose a bit of confidence in Sleep Token, which I know that sounds kind of silly, but like. When they first got announced as a headliner off the back of Eden, I was like, there are no doubts in my mind. And like I would argue it to the ends of the earth for it against anyone that was a naysayer. Whereas now I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I've just lost a bit of that, like...
The fight.
Like that sureness in like, this band.
I do agree with you.
I don't know.
I do feel like this album's maybe come out a bit too soon. After Eden, like I said, that was like the end of the trilogy, it was a close to flawless album. So I was, when they announced this album, I was a bit surprised, even though it's like been 2 years now since Eden. I was a bit surprised that it was coming out again so soon.
And I think
I thought, given that it was the end of a trilogy, like closing off like the storyline there with the closing track on that album, Euclid. I thought they'd maybe need a bit more time to kind of make sure they're going in the right direction. It's probably signing to RCA has probably been great for them in terms of having more marketing budget and like being pushed out there even more. But it probably means they've been rushed to release an album perhaps sooner than they wanted to creatively.
Yeah,
and that's purely speculation.
Yeah.
They might have wanted to release it anyway, but yeah.
I think as well it would have been. I think the point I'm trying to get to is I think it would have been more satisfying to go into Download off of the back of the trilogy and be like, this is a band who have done so much with such a short kind of body of work to get to this point. Whereas now it just feels like, I don't know, this album. Overall, I think this album is, like you said, it's good. It's a pizza album. The problem that I have with it is I feel like it maybe serves the purpose of sending a message first and then is an album second, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like a lot of the themes on this are like self-reflection and like the struggle of like balancing success and how it's changed Vessel's life, which I get, but I feel like that point is like, it's like I want to make an album to make this point rather than I want to make an album that will make this point. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that maybe I know it's hard to speak on like someone else's mindset for making an album, but that's my interpretation. Is it feels like you're trying to get a message to me first and a song to me second.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think the other thing that's kind of sorry, James, I will finish in a second. The other thing I think is like, because they've been so unique, there are times on this album where like, to me, it was almost like they were bordering on like self-parody, because it felt like there were some things where it's just like, this is an idea that I've kind of already heard well executed. Yeah. And it feels like there are times on this album where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but then they still manage to kind of break it.
I will say Vessel's, like, they lean into like some of the spoken word and rapping a bit more on this one, and I will say Vessel's flow does like feel good and feel improved, I think.
Do you think? I think
so.
It feels a lot more repetitive on this album.
In some places, for sure.
And I thought
Pass Out for Side, which is a straight up pop song, which again is fine. I'm not disrespecting the fact that I'm not going down the route of they're not a metal band. But yeah, I think his flow on some of these songs are great, but it does feel like they've just gone, people love Dissensionism. Let's do that again. Like 3 times on one album. Should we let James get a word in?
Right.
I also think... No,
I'm going to circle back to so many points from things you've mentioned. Album release in terms of coming too soon. Obviously, we knew that from Andy Copping speaking, maybe it was at the start of the year, maybe even it was the end of last year, that he was teasing new music and probably new album was coming prior to Download. So part of me feels like maybe it was in the works for a while, and they maybe had some of it in the background. There's a part of me that wouldn't be surprised, again, it's all speculation, that obviously they had the idea of the whole trilogy, that some of the songs on Eden could have been written ages ago. Like you have the callbacks to, I'm forgetting song titles already.
The Night Does Not Belong to God in Euclid.
Yeah, yes, like where you kind of have that like book ending. Like there's a lot of ideas and themes that run throughout, where I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like we're writing Sundown and we're writing Tomb, we're writing Eden. Like there could have been a lot more of a flow between that, and then okay, we're experimenting on other stuff, and that's kind of what made up this album. Again, all speculation, that might all be wrong.
Well, that point's fresh, by the way. They kind of do similar on this album, like the synthy, like almost like Legend of Zelda sounding bit at the intro to Look to Windward is like very, very similar to the heavy breakdown riff that plays out at the end of Infinite
It's
Past.
like an interpretation of the same.
Yeah, exactly, the same
theme.
kind of concept.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
I agree with you on the whole doing Download off the back of Eden. I was already getting a bit skeptical as it was. Not skeptical, that's the wrong word.
Worried?
Apprehensive, worried about the set. And like this is making me a little bit more unsure of it. Yes, this is amazing commercial success and should be extremely celebrated for something in this kind of scene of all the shit that we cover with all the different genres that we talk about. It's a phenomenal thing to have that great success, and so they should be extremely commended for that. However, I feel that off the back of seeing all the reviews from all these different like sites, magazines, and then listening to it, my opinion of this album in no way matches up with that. I agree with you a lot in terms of I started to feel like I was zoning out in songs a little bit when trying to listen to it as a whole album. And I also feel like realizing a lot of their songwriting feels to me quite formulaic in terms of, yes, then you wouldn't really class them as a metal band, but they have the same kind of formula, it feels in particular now, where you kind of have your soft intro, you have just kind of your vocals with synths and bits and pieces, then we have a bit of music coming in, then maybe it gets a bit heavier in there, and you have your token, pun intended, bridge section, which is your heavy riffs and your breakdown, and then we come back to like the softer part. It feels like there's too much rinse, repeat. Yes, I think some of the lyrics on here are some of the better lyrics, but I also think they have some of the worst lyrics. And I'm going to pull up a particular line that you know, and you're going to hate that I'm going to say it. Yeah, I see you, the only bad baddie spinning eyes in the room, the only good girl in the side of the moon.
Bad baddie doesn't make any sense anyway. Shouldn't it be?
Cringy.
Sorry, I'm not speaking to my
Cringy.
It is a bit cringy.
And so I think, yeah, there is that, but I think on the other end, it's got some of the worst lyricism they've put on an album. And it just feels like, to me, there's songs within it where it doesn't feel like the full structure of the album flows completely. Kind of like Past Self and Provider, which seem to be, among us, the weaker songs on the album.
Past Self was really jarring on a first listen.
It feels like you pull those out, the album, I think, would flow better and would be a better collection of songs. But I think kind of jumping between that and the way things are ordered on the album, it doesn't feel like a great cohesive piece of work with that.
While we're talking about album cohesion, I'm going to give a shout out to the album track, Evening Arcadia. I think where it's placed it's obviously placed right in the middle of the album. If it's a song in itself, it's got lyrics, it's got a melody and everything, but it feels like an interlude. It's almost like carrying you from the first half of the album into the second half. And I think like one of the areas we've been critical is the cohesion of the album, but I think that track in particular kind of is underrated in the way it holds the album together, with all these kind of, if we picture the album as like, Spider-Man on that train, it's almost like that track being bang in the middle is holding the album, like the two halves of the album together by a thread.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I also think that listening to this now as the full album, my stance on Emergence has changed, and I would say for me it's the standout song on the album.
Yeah, let's talk about what we think some bangers are. Let's be
that would be the only one for me in particular. It genuinely is. It's the only one to me that actually really stood out, and it based on that as well. It's not an album I feel like I want to revisit.
That's a shame.
But your standout.
Emergence is a big one. Damocles I loved from release, and even though like I said earlier, that the album sort of beats you over the head with the point, I feel like if that was the only song touching on it, I wouldn't even have, because I feel like that song does it in such a concise way that then every time that theme returns in other songs, I'm like, well, you've already really put this really eloquently in Damocles, like, leave it alone.
Stop repeating it.
Yeah, I don't know. And Infinite Baths, I think, is, given that they've ended Tomb and Eden with really soft tracks. How does Sundowning end? What's the last track on Sundowning?
Bloodsport.
There you go. So this being like a heavy end to the album, I think is quite refreshing, because I was just kind of, by the time I got there, I thought, oh, there's going to be another ballad to see us out. So
they're almost bringing the lore back with the closing of Infinite Baths, because it feels like a lot of this album is about like Vessel reflecting on the past and like being, oh, like I've ascended, I'm over all of this, like we're moving on now, life's good again. But then the closing of that album almost feels like, because Infinite Bath is always like, well, there's the lyric in there, isn't there? I fought so hard to be here, I'm never going back. So it's kind of like the acceptance of, I wanted this, I worked hard for this, I'm going to keep doing this thing. But then like when the heavy breakdown comes in and like those screams come in, it almost feels like it's sleep, like chiming in and going like I'm still here, mate. I'm still going to haunt you.
I think it's interesting. I'm one thing I will say is it's definitely maybe interesting as to what comes next, but the problem is how long do we have to wait? And I worry that
it does almost feel like they need to do something again
quite
soon.
I think the longer people sit with this album, the worse that's going to be. Yeah, the more harm it could do. Which again is why I feel like this should have waited till after download.
Yeah, that's another point I have to make actually. With when Sundowning was already out when I became a Sleep Token fan. So like the only releases I've had have been Tomb and Eden before this. When both of those albums came out, it was basically the only thing I listened to for weeks. Whereas this one, I'm kind of over it already. I mean, it's been out for 2 weeks, I think, at time of recording.
Dan said where he ranks it amongst discography. Do you agree? Would you say it's the weakest album?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
agree. I think the best album is Eden. My favourite album is Tomb.
I think there's some really well-developed songwriting on this album. I think some of the techniques they're using is probably like technically some of the best on individual songs and in individual moments. But again, but as an album, it just doesn't have the same replayability, I think, and the same strength and consistency as the rest of their discography so far.
Yeah.
It's left me feeling really surprised kind of on all the other reviews that have come out about it. And it does feel a little bit arse-licky.
The problem
not
is,
gonna lie, to be honest.
I was going to make a different.
But like seeing where people are calling it so revolutionary, constant 5 out of 5 stars.
Well, the disappointing thing for me looking at reviews from not just media outlets but also just people online is there's people giving it 10 out of 10, there's people giving it 1 out of 10, and there doesn't seem to really be anyone in the middle that's kind of done what we've done and gone, it does this well, it does this not so well. There doesn't seem to be anyone giving it like a fairly balanced review.
It's bias,
and I think that's
way.
quite disappointing.
It feels like there's bias either way. Whether you love Sleep Token or hate Sleep Token, you're going to end up on whichever side of the spectrum you're on, and not look at it as, okay, let me just analyse this as a piece of work.
As soon as they became popular, there was already that massive division of people that love Sleep Token and people that hate them, and there just doesn't seem to be enough people in the middle going, "This is good." This is not so good.
Something I did feel quite strongly about what sort of seeing the reactions flood in for this, and I know that I'm about to contradict myself here but the two things that really frustrate me about this band is, number one, they've never professed to be a metal band. That's just a label that.
Well, there's that early interview, isn't there, where Vessel says something along the lines of genre is a distraction, or people get bogged down with genre. It doesn't matter what it is.
So there's a part of me that feels like all the like metalheads that don't like this and have been shitting on them for day one. There's a part of me that's
it's just heavy Imagine Dragons.
Yeah, there's a part of me that's just a bit like, fuck off, it's not for you. But then at the same time, I'm not interested in hearing what some twat at Pitchfork thinks about it, who clearly doesn't like because it's not. Maybe it's not heavy metal, but it's alternative music.
Yeah,
that's
and
the
then
best
there's
way
a part of me that thinks it's like, well, your opinion is completely void. It's the same as Anthony Fantano.
Yeah,
I don't need to
hear
someone that doesn't like it tell me they don't like it. I know it's a tangent, but it's comparable to like, I like horror films, right? The majority of film media doesn't like horror. Doesn't win Oscars. It's not really respected for the art that it is. So do I want some like stuck-up 70-year-old miserable prick to tell me that they don't like horror films?
Yeah, if it's something that's not made for them, they're not going to like it.
And so I do feel like almost a sense of like defense of this album, because I think like Like, did you see that Pitchfork guy double down on Loathe and shit on Loathe? And I just thought, well, clearly you don't fucking like this music then. So fuck off.
I agree with you completely. From watching the Fantano one, it's like he's doing it to kind of bait the audience in for it. Yeah. I will not gonna lie.
I don't think it's even that. I don't think he's done it to deliberately debate people.
He's never going to like it.
Alex said he doesn't like
no, but that's the thing.
Heavy guitar music, so he's not going to like it.
No, he's not going to like it, but he's going to do it anyway because he knows that there's going to be people. Yeah. That's why I'm saying people are going to come at him for it. He'll get views on those kind of things. He's doing it for the attention. That's literally it. I won't lie. I did laugh at the line watching his review because I was very intrigued to see it of Sleep Token is metal for Disney adults.
He's got a point.
I did think of you a little bit there.
That's fine. That's
I did laugh at that line, but the whole point of him doing that review is just fucking pointless. Like, why?
But that's my point, right? Is the only thing people are taking from that is that one sentence. No one can quote off the top of their head anything he said musically about the album. So, like, what's the point? Why?
For some reason, he was critiquing the guitar tones, but I think that's one of the most identifiable things with Sleep Token's music.
But at the same time, it's an album that was bound to be commercially successful. So I do see why all these mainstream outlets have reviewed it. It's just it was never going to just get a good review from them. That's the thing.
I know we're getting off topic now, but I guess the whole point of us doing this as a discussion was to talk about beyond just the album. Yeah, this was going to go in. I think arbitrary scores or ratings on albums is awful. I think it's one of the worst things.
Yeah, if you're going to give
the
a rating,
same as
you've got to
IMDb
back it up somewhere in your review, I think.
Like I just throw in a 5-star on it and calling it a day. Like you said, like quite often these people are not actually saying anything. It's just a paragraph of text with no substance and then 5 stars at the bottom, and it's like, well,
some of them just feel like a press release.
Yeah,
like the band's management have gone, here's a description of the album.
Yeah,
write that as a review and give it 5 stars.
It's why normally we don't do scores on an album or anything, because I just think the best thing that you can do is say what you like, say what you don't like, and someone out there might use that information to go and listen to the album and make their own judgment. Be diligent is what I'm trying to say, even if it's not us.
Okay.
Whoever you're listening to or reading the reviews of, be diligent about who it is and where it's coming from, because if it's not someone, I feel like we're qualified to talk about this album because
we're fans of
the band. We've listened to them for a long time. We've been talking about them for a long time, and then there's a part of me that feels like it's disingenuous and I understand that they are massive now, but like there's a disingenuous approach to someone who's never listened to one of their albums before to now suddenly chime in with an opinion.
To wrap it up, give me like 2 sentences on your thoughts of the Sleep Token, even an Arcadia release.
I think it's great, but I expected more.
It's okay to not like something by a band you love.
Disappointed, unsure of the future, and I need convincing.
To wrap up after the wrap up though, no matter what you think of this album, I think it's worth commending what a huge, like having this be such a huge commercial success in not only the UK chart, but in charts around Europe, over in the US as well. From a band that is essentially just a couple of goofy guys, just being as having as much like creative freedom as they possibly can, and just making music that they want to make. To have them like essentially take over the world in such a short amount of time, as sure not metal, but as a heavy alternative band being top of the charts globally is such a huge achievement, not just for Sleep Token, but for the alternative music scene in general. And it's only going to pull up like other bands around them.
Still always going to fly that flag of let bands make what they want to make. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But there's no way that anyone should still be dictating what someone should be making for them.
And form your own opinion, please, God.
Yeah, don't just listen to Fantano.
You don't have to just and don't even
listen to us.
Don't listen to us.
Go
listen to the album and judge it for yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to just blindly love it because you already like the other stuff. You don't have to blindly hate it because you already hate the other stuff.
But let us know your thoughts.
Yes.
Down below.
Do let us know. Do argue with us, please. kids in their phones, eh? While they're searching their phones... shut the fuck up. While they're searching their phones for something to recommend, let me talk to you about Ragamuffin FM. It's a playlist we have that we update every 2 weeks along with every episode of this podcast, featuring 15 songs that we love at the moment. 5 songs each. But we're going to give a little spotlight shout out to one song each right now, starting with James.
Lip Split by La Signora. The album I mentioned earlier on. It was one of the singles that came out. It's a lot of fun.
I'm going to pick The World by Arm's Length. It's the opening track off their brand new album, and I think it's such a strong opener as well. It's kind of got everything that band does really well, all compacted into one track.
I am going to choose When You Know by Neck Deep, because the summer is approaching, fast approaching, and it's a nice summertime vibe. Get us excited for Slam Dunk, get us excited for the months ahead. If you want to get your little grubby paws on any of the music we talked about or anything coming up, truckmusic.store is the place for you.
Comment down below, let us know your thoughts on any of the releases we talked about, especially the Sleep Token one. Subscribe, we've got so many big things happening. We are literally about to enter festival season.
Literally.
As you may be watching
Doors open.
Depending on when it could be. We might be at Slam Dunk already. So if you're heading to North while we're at South, go and check out our preview. If it's before Slam Dunk, check out our preview. We're going to have a download preview. We're going to have vlogs of all the festivals this summer. So you're going to want to stay tuned. We can all get excited together. It's going to be bloody gorgeous. I think that's about it, really, isn't it?
Yes.
And use code Ragamuffin20 at Broken Day Clothing to get 20% off orders of £40 or more. Love you, bye.